Yo, yo, welcome to Thursday's stream. What episode are we on now? 342, almost on 365. That is pretty insane. Hopefully everyone's having a good Thursday. Like I said earlier, it's the last stream before Friday, and Friday and the weekends, particularly Friday and Sunday, have been where almost all of the action has taken place, primarily speaking about Bitcoin here. And then as that action takes place on Friday or Sunday, really that kind of dictates the rest of the market's moves for that whole next week. So in about a day to the next 2 or 3 days, as kind of we consolidate, happened here, right? Happened here, and now it's happening again here. That's just for the last 2 or 3 weeks. That's when the Bitcoin moves have been happening. So it's going to be fun to watch that this weekend. I want to prepare for that. Think about, once again, the major levels we've already looked at a ton. So there's really no update there. I will look at some small time frame stuff here with Bitcoin and how I'm using this daily open to kind of just stay objective and continue to, in my opinion, want to stay long. I'll explain kind of my thought process there and how that can help you as well. And then of the topics that I put out in the Discord today, it looked like the one that got the most responses, if you guys didn't see it, looked like the one that got the most responses was right down here. It was this guy right here. It wasn't the Bogged, wasn't the Moon, or the Lambo, or the Pepe. It was that meme guy. So we're going to be looking at some new alt setups. Honestly, how I want to do that is a lot of you guys are familiar, especially if, pretty much everyone except for people that joined this week are familiar with the idea of cycle lows, right? It's how we found countless ideas in the past 2 months, whether it's Mana moving for that 30 or 40%, whether it's RCN moving for how much 30, 40, 50%. There was just a ton of cycle low movers that did very, very well. And that's been really the only framework that I've hit hard. But there is kind of a new idea that I've been building today and kind of studying. And I'm basing it off of 2 different charts. And it's a little bit of an evolution of the cycle low framework. Right, so it's something that I'm going to touch on today, and then I imagine tomorrow, this weekend, and all next week, and really the rest of March, it's probably going to be really what I'm kind of basing most of my setups off of. It doesn't mean it's the only framework or the only approach that's going to work. Obviously, I've shown this week, and I think you guys have probably seen your own trading, tons of different setups and chart styles can work, right? BNB was not a cycle low at all. It was literally just using one horizontal level, and that turned it into a nice 30% swing. So it's not the only style that can work, but looking at ELF and Icon is really kind of how I'm gonna build this framework. I don't have a name for it yet. I don't think it's as clear. It's a little bit more abstract, but I think after I explain it with 1 or 2 chart examples, once I can clear off all my drawings, that is, you guys will see exactly what I mean by this and why kind of I want to focus on charts that look like this, with ELF and Icon being a really nice guide for why I want to look at charts like this. For why I want to look at charts like this, and obviously not ELF or Icon in particular, but maybe coins that are a few steps behind, right? So we're going to be looking at ELF, and Icon is doing something very similar, right? And I'm going to kind of break down the different components of this, and also some other charts that I think are showing similar signs, right? So that's how we're gonna proceed today. As always, if you have any questions, do try to save them for the end, and then if you have any charts or anything like that, give me some context. It just helps me help you guys, and it'll also help the other people that are watching and listening kind of understand what you're trying to do, right? Shout out everyone that's in here: Santiago Valerio, Miami Alex, a lot of familiar names. Jeremiah, I did not know that it was Alexander Bell Day. I have his book behind me, Intelligent Investor. I just didn't know he had a specific day. Trent, nice. Jason, what's good? Caspers, what's going on? Caspers, I saw your DM. I am 100% going to get back to you right after the stream. That's on my to-do list. What's up, Adam? What's up, Max? John? All right, cool, guys. Let's start it up. So Bitcoin, you guys are all familiar, right? The idea or my approach, even if this isn't your approach, I think it's going to be helpful. What's up, Sky Jones? Right, my idea and plan the whole last week, really the whole last 10 days, buying 3,700, and where that puts us today, I've covered. I think yesterday we covered for a while why this mid-trade or mid-range resistance is important, right? So above 39, just a really quick review, above 39.20 for me, if price can get up here, just as it showed last time, right? If we start having 4-hour Let me show the daily time frame. If we start having kind of daily closes above this level, sure, there can be a fake out. We had one daily close above 39.20. Come on, TradingView. We had one daily close above 39.20, and then we kind of went backwards. But really, the next close above 39.20, right, immediately after, we were able to move really quickly up to about 4,200. Right, so that is still going to be kind of the biggest check mark for me to want to be outright bullish short term, or thinking that, you know, maybe for people that weren't able to buy 3,700 or are now wanting to find out what I think the best, you know, course of action is, or from a risk reward or expectancy standpoint, what the best course of action is, basing it off of how price reacted in this range low, range high last time, right, closes above this 39.20 to me is kind of the next major signal, or the next kind of short-term bullish signal that I can see, right? So nothing about that has changed. But one thing I am looking at today, which you might not be, right, or one thing I think you can add to your repertoire or analysis is, I like to use daily opens and daily closes a lot if I'm looking at Bitcoin intraday. Right, and you guys know me, I don't particularly like to look at anything like smaller than an hour. I will at times, but generally it's just not my trading style. I really do prefer kind of higher time frames and swings that last a week or 2 weeks. And Bitcoin, the one way that I use these daily opens and daily closes is I try to think about trading in the direction of the daily open. Right, so what does that mean? If we look at a daily candle, right, we only have two colors for a daily. The daily can either open high and close low, and that's a red daily, or the daily can you know, have a lower open and close above its daily open, and that's a green candle. Right? So you have to think about, obviously, I'm going to say something very, very obvious, but it actually has application. Obviously, you want to be long on green days and you want to be short on red days. Right? So how does that factor into your individual decision-making and your individual position management? I like to think about it like this. Right? I use TraderXO, who's in the group, he's around here somewhere, has a script on TradingView, and it's called TraderXO OHL. Right? Even if you don't have that, it's really easy to mark the daily open. And the way that I use this is, let's say like today's daily open and yesterday's, they both pretty much happened at exactly the exact same price, right? Pretty much like 38.50. If we are trading above the daily open, and right now we are, right? Right now we're trading at, you know, 38.60, 38.80, and we are very close to kind of this mid-range resistance. Right, we're very close to this mid-range resistance, which I think is kind of the most important resistance right now that we need to cross. But as long as we're trading above this daily open, which is 38.50, 38.52, I don't really want to be too worried. I don't necessarily want to be taking new short plays. I want to be not only trading in the direction of the daily open, but I also want to be positioned in the direction of the daily open. Right? And that's just because, imagine it like this, right? For those daily candles, obviously you want to be long on a green day or on an up day, and you want to be short on a red day. If today is a green day and the daily will close in a few hours, right, I generally want to be positioned long as that day is a positive gain. So unless we start trading, you know, below these daily opens, and this is like 38.50, and all of a sudden these higher lows get broken, to me, I don't want to be shaken out of a position, right? So even if you're not long from down here, you're long from anywhere. That's kind of a nice little guide, or a nice little rule set you can even have for yourself on smaller time frames. I know there's some small time frame traders in here, right? To be thinking about, okay, you know, what does this look like on a higher time frame, right? Right now it looks like this. If this is a candle, right now it looks like this, and this is a green candle, right? So if today's candle is green, whether you're long from here, right, generally I don't want to be shorting in this period. Now, once the new daily opens, right, or if all of a sudden price starts to trade down, then this would look a little bit different, right? Obviously, it would look like something like this. And then all of a sudden, okay, it probably makes sense if I'm long to maybe be cutting my longs, or maybe be at least considering hedging short, right? Because then the likelihood that we actually travel lower is a little bit higher. But for right now, you know, I know that the movement has been slow. It's slow throughout the week. It has been for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We just don't get a lot of movement Tuesday through Friday. I circled this at the beginning of the stream, right? you know, I'm just not going to be faked out or doing too much or making too many moves or staring at this chart all day because I don't want to be shaken out from the noise, right? The trend is very clearly up. We're trading above the daily open. Yes, we are close to resistance, so I don't want to be adding. But right now, I'm content sitting long. And if we get above 39.20, then I'm probably thinking about, you know, opening more long exposure because the chances that we actually hit 41, 4,200 are a lot higher. Right, as long as we're trading above this daily open, and especially if we get above 39.30. Right, that's Bitcoin's view. That's just a little tidbit on how I use the daily open. I have a full video on that in the Discord if you're curious about that. Right, so that's Bitcoin, guys. And what that's doing, we're seeing another day where Litecoin and EOS and even ADA, which has been a little bit of a letdown, are making slight gains. You know, just a very quick reminder, as we move up in this range, and if Bitcoin can keep moving up, that only means good things for major alts, right? So in the event that Bitcoin actually does give us kind of this ideal scenario and start closing above 39.20, or even if it just inches up here, right? The higher Bitcoin goes in this range, right, the better those major alts are going to do. And that's ETH, that's EOS, that's ADA, that's every single one of them. Really, I expect that from all of them except for Tron. Right, so something to think about if you are long those, the exact same way I want to stay long Bitcoin for right now, I really kind of want to be pretty patient with staying long ETH and ADA. You know, if all of a sudden we start trading down below 38.50 and we start getting back down to 3,700, I say, okay, maybe this is a little bit worrisome. I don't want to be long, you know, every major alt anymore. I don't want to be long Bitcoin anymore. But for right now, as things move, I want to stay patient. I want to stay long. Right, different way to think about Bitcoin there. All right, I got you, Jeremiah. What I wanted to look at today, real quick update on the one trade of the week, or the quick trade of the week, I should say. It turned out to be a rather quick trade, is BNB. And we looked at yesterday why this is a target, both from a fib level perspective, and then also if we just extend the two previous highs, or the two previous tops, back here, extend the line that way, right? We get this trend line where both times price has seen selling pressure, or at least I expect there to be selling pressure. We're within like 1 or 2% of that, right? I think 1.9%, whatever it is. I don't want to be so greedy that I just never get my sells hit here, whether it's 2 or 3% higher, and then all of a sudden we have a retrace. I'm not saying BNB is going to retrace, and I'm not saying that it couldn't blast away through, but if I think about playing this setup just from a systematic perspective and trying to kind of increase my chances of fading the move at the top of the move, right? To me, I've taken nearly all profits on this. Right, so it worked out to be a nice 26% play. That was a fun trade for the week. I'm really glad that worked out, but I don't want to get so greedy here. On the daily and on the weekly, this thing looks kind of, honestly, it's getting a little bit ridiculous. Right, so it's something to consider if you're long BNB. I'm not telling you what to do, but you know, whether you bought with me or you're long from your own kind of spot, I do still think this whole area, this kind of confluence of two kind of strong levels of daily resistance, I do think that's something to think about, right? Just a thought there. For me, I'm fading that. That's a nice play for the week. All right, I guess we can cover the new framework now. That's going to be fun because it's really going to drive most of the trades for the rest of the month. And this is something that I imagine a lot of us are going to be able to take advantage of. I definitely feel like we're going to be able to take advantage of it. So this is what most of my trades are going to be based off of. I'm going to try to go through it from a basic level, and then I'm happy to kind of look at individual setups with you guys. So the general idea for cycle lows, I know all you guys understand this one that have been with me, like I said, for the past 2 months. Really, it's based on the fact that almost every single coin bottomed at September 12th low, right? And a lot of coins that continued to ride that September 12th low support moved up to their swing high, right? So we have a lot of trades that worked out like that. ELF is one of them. Right, moved up for a 30-40% play. QuantStamp's one of them, moved up for a 30% play. GoChain was another one, right? Off-cycle lows moving up for a 30% play. There was countless plays that kind of did that. Mana is another one, right? From our cycle low, September 12th low. Right? Where am I targeting? Swing high. Right, so that's a setup that I think I've covered it so much. I think everyone has to understand that one. And I still think that those ideas are attractive. Right, there's still quite a few that we've covered that look like that. The most recent one we covered as of last week is LRC, and I still think this looks great. Right, here's September 12th low. Right, that's September 12th right there. Previous resistance here, We're right at support here. Where am I aiming for LRC? I'm aiming for this next swing high. Right, I think everyone understands cycle low setups. I don't need to go over that framework anymore. I think that's something that everyone can be applying to their charts. Now what I want to focus on is kind of a new framework for next month. And what I mean by framework is this isn't the only setup that's going to work. Clearly there's other ideas that can work, right? And even, if this is working for 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 ideas, it doesn't mean that every single cycle low idea is going to work. Right, there's one that I've thought looked amazing now for over a month, and that's DNT. It's been right at cycle lows, and it just has barely moved. Right, so they're not all going to work, but it does present kind of a nice framework, and I know a lot of guys are using it. The next thing I want to focus on and how I find these, right, I look at a few coins that are doing really, really well, and if they're kind of forming a similar pattern or have similar characteristics, then I say, okay, how many other alts are doing that exact same thing that I can move into expecting that they do the same thing as kind of the good performing alts? Right, the reason that works from a logical perspective is because all alts move together. Right, 98% of alts, as alts are trending higher, are going to trend higher together. So they also form very similar patterns. So one of the patterns that I'm seeing, it's not necessarily a cycle low. Right, September 12th was kind of the date and focus on the last one. The two coins that are giving a really clear picture of what's going on for this new framework actually kind of bottomed out around November, December, right? So ELF and ICON are what I'm going to show. I'm going to put them up here on split screen, and then we'll look at a new coin or new setups that I think are kind of showing similar things, right, as kind of potential opportunities. Let me find ICON real quick so you guys can see the similarities here. Right, so for the previous ideas, I've been focused on September 12th, right? Just immediately when I look at any chart, my eyes zoom to September 12th. For a lot of these, the bottom is actually happening in November, December. Right, so if we look at ICON, I'm just going to pick kind of, or let's look at ELF first. If I'm going to pick just with my eyes, right, these are kind of the bottom or the most ideal support. Right, and they're bottoming out pretty much November, December. Most of November, December, a ton of touches on that support before things actually start moving. Right, and then what's happening is a lot of these coins that are reaching their first swing high, right, all I mean by swing high is where did kind of the push take price once it bottomed, right? For ELF, it was up here. It's about a 30% move. And for ICON, it was up to right here, also about a 30% move. Right? And that's kind of the swing high for a few touches. Same thing as ELF. Right? So ICON and ELF both showing that exact same thing. Now, why I think this is going to be kind of an attractive pattern to look at for other coins is, you'll notice on both ELF and ICON, this isn't where the move stopped. Right, so not like for Mana and not like for QuantStamp and a lot of the cycle low ideas we've played, right? You guys know how they've worked. Whoa. Right, for a lot of them, the setup was this: buy cycle low, aim for the swing high. Right, aim for the swing high, stop below kind of our cycle low, and that's that. Right, you want to capture this move. Exact repeat of September 12th. You want to capture this move because right after things are retracing. Now, what's interesting about what's going on with ELF and ICON, come on ELF, where'd you go? The difference with ELF and ICON is all of a sudden, right, these coins aren't moving to their swing high and then retracing and kind of stalling now. What they're doing is after they're hitting their swing high, they're actually breaking that level. A lot of them are retesting and it looks like they're ready for their next leg up. Right, so exact same thing happened here down here with ICON. Right, it has its first initial 20-30% move. And then after that move, not only does it go past this current swing high, right, here's kind of the next high, but it's retesting and then moving a ton higher. Right, ICON already another 10-15% of the day. ELF doing pretty much the same thing 10% of the day. Right, so the date previously was September 12th. I was just really focused on alts that found a bottom of September 12th. I want to be buying over here. Now kind of the new framework is there's coins that are even more depressed. You'll notice on both these, September 12th is actually way higher. Right, September 12th is like, another 60% from the bottom for a lot of these. Right, or kind of this new framework, I would call it. So here's September 12th for ICON. Right, which is like 50-60% from the bottom. Right, so I'm looking at a few different coins. I haven't found any that stick out to me as kind of an exact match, but I do like this framework of coins that maybe are more depressed than September 12th and have formed this range over November, December, right? That's kind of the new framework, guys. I don't have a new idea on that, but that's something we're going to continue to kind of touch on for almost all of March, just because I know that I'm going to find probably 2 or 3 or 4 setups on that. Obviously, how I want to play this is I want to be looking at coins now that I kind of know that September 12th maybe isn't the area I want to focus on. I want to be looking at coins that are even lower than September 12th, right? That have formed this kind of range in November, December, and I want to be finding them here. Because as this plays out, right, obviously they're moving past their little November, December range, and then that gives us even more room until kind of the next September level. Right, so that's going to be what I'm focusing on for probably this weekend, a lot of next week. So if you hear me talk, I don't have a name for it. I will have a name for it, but that's going to be kind of the groundwork or kind of the guiding. It's really like a filter for finding new ideas, right? The other thing based on this exact same concept as cycle lows is if we are buying coins like this, I'm not talking about buying coins that are just in an exact free fall and targeting to pick the bottom. But if we do find coins like this, or if I find a setup like this, right, that has ranged in November, December, right, obviously the price risk of something like this, exact same thing as cycle low. Let's say the market does turn. Let's say Bitcoin does dump to 3,700 and things start trending down. Obviously, I think these would get hurt a lot less than something that's still priced much higher, right? So not only do I think it increases our chances of catching kind of nice big wins, but from a risk perspective, I think it makes a ton of sense as well. And that's really kind of a nice, I guess, 2 guiding principles for if I'm ever finding a framework or some kind of rule set for looking at ideas, right? I want something that does both of those. I don't want something that's just going to help me try to make money. I want something that's going to help kind of the downside when things go wrong, right? Quick look at other coins. I just think this is an important topic as well. Quick look at other coins that are literally at their exact cycle lows that I think are still very attractive. Because I know there's people in here that maybe are looking for new alt ideas, but haven't been around to kind of see the ones that I've been covering or I think are attractive. Right? MFT is something that continues to literally sit at August, September lows. It was a nice 20-30% run, really never got to my 109 target last time, but I still think this one's priced very attractively. And this is kind of following the cycle low framework. So this isn't a new idea, but for me, MFT still looks great, right? And just a very basic setup of how I've been setting all these ideas up. This isn't necessarily specific to MFT, right? It's wanting to buy these cycle lows just because that's where price has been most depressed. That's where volume continues to step in on this support. And it's also a very clear understanding of if this level does break for MFT at 72 sats, if we have a daily close below here, right, my risk is very clearly outlined and managed, right? It's like a 3 or 4% down, right? 6% down, giving yourself a little bit of room. And it's also pretty easy to be picking your targets. I think here is kind of a no-brainer 15% play, but really looking for the full 30%, 40%. Right? MFT is one that still looks great. I know a couple guys still found VET attractive or still like VET. I think that VET also looks very good. It's a lot like MFT. Right? It's another cycle low play. I think these 2 charts are almost identical. And I like them both. I actually kind of still love them both. If we look at VET, another one that really never got to my targets or never got moving, but for me, it's still showing great signs. All right, we're at the bottom, August 15th, September lows. I pretty much call August and September lows the exact same thing, right? And it's formed this kind of nice rounded bottom every single time, forming a higher low and respecting this support still. The first target for VET, if you're in VET or if you're still looking at VET, right, is another 10, 15% higher, but really looking at kind of that 40% play. Why am I looking for 40% there? This is previous high time frame support, expecting that to flip as resistance, right? This one's pretty clear. I think everyone should see that resistance at around 130 sats. Right, so VET and MFT are still 2 that I think look great. They're just 2 that have really never moved. And then Quantstamp and DNT, obviously 2 that continue to be attractive as well. We've covered Loom. All right, so I'm going to take questions now. That pretty much covers everything I want to look at. My high time frame view, just kind of 30,000 feet up view, is I'm sticking by that I still think action for the majors is maybe going to be a little bit more exciting as Bitcoin kind of moves up in this range, or if Bitcoin moves up in this range, even if we get above 3920. I still think there's probably more immediate upside or more movement imminent for something like ETH, which I'm aiming for still kind of that 0.041 target. And that's just because, or even ADA, which I know just literally hasn't moved. And that's just because, guys, the exact same thing as last Bitcoin move from 3,700 up to 41. What happened there? It was almost all majors capturing that move, and mid caps only kind of move after. All right, so I love the mid caps. It's why I covered that framework today. It's why I'm going to be scoping out new ideas. But really, if you're wondering what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, it's really kind of just tracking more of ETH and ADA and being focused on those. I'm not in a mad rush to be kind of scrambling and finding the next alt play because I know we still have tons of time, I feel like. All right. POE doing the exact same thing. Oh, look at that. Jeremiah, I like that, the resurrection setup. I might have to use that. I try to find something not too ambiguous. All right, gas. Let's take a look. What do we got for gas? You don't hear about gas a lot anymore, I guess, because NEO has really kind of lost everyone's attention. There is an August-September low. Yeah, I think gas, before you even check out the rest of your question, I think it looks good. With a little lag, 630 to 950, maybe. Yeah, so how I'm viewing this, right? I still lock on to August 15th and September 12th, whatever level is lower, right? That's kind of the cycle low for the coin. So that's really the first level I'm going to look at. And then zooming in a little bit just to the more recent stuff, Jeremiah, if this is all clearly resistance, right? You can see the wicks into it, failing to close above. And then immediately after we are starting to close above it, right, here on this pop, and I imagine this pop's caused by NEO, right? I'm kind of looking now at this level that was resistance. Right, this is all resistance in here. Right as that level flips, right, looking for it to be support again. And it's just the exact same support as back here. So for me, yeah, I think gas does look good. I don't track the NEO and gas relationship a ton, but I think that setup's pretty clear. I think that makes sense. Up to 950 is what you're looking for. If I had to choose, really, I'd probably be going for like 84. I think that level maybe stands out to me a little bit sooner. I don't see as much significance with 950. I think 950 is there. I just think that I would probably be expecting selling pressure before then, right? So I'd probably be looking roughly at something like this. I think gas looks good here. I think it looks really good. Right? It's also just a very clearly defined setup. Obviously, that's a rough take. I haven't looked at the order book. But that's a very clearly kind of defined setup of all of a sudden, even if you gave yourself a little bit of room right below this most recent swing low, I like to do that. Right? I don't like to play my things as tight. So giving myself a little bit of room, whether it's 14, 15%, do what works for you, but base it off something. Right? Don't just be playing around with this just so you see kind of a magical risk-reward number, and then aiming for that next daily resistance here. I think that setup looks good. Jeremiah, the one thing I would consider before 95 is I'd be looking at 84. To me, that stands out as resistance. LSK. I think LSK looks incredible. I saw Serban, I saw someone posted on Twitter, and I didn't post my update on it. But this is one that is showing. This is one that is showing kind of a, I would say it's close to kind of that framework I just noticed today, right? If we think about. Oh, it might cross it today as well. If we look at, the coins I just looked at, Icon and ELF forming their bottoms. In November, December, as opposed to, right, this is something that had a low back here in August. It had a low kind of October, August, September, whatever you want to call that. That level is broken and we move down swiftly. And now it's really formed kind of a new range. Right, even breaking below kind of the lows from November briefly. Whoa, where's the arrow I want? Right, so if this is support, just kind of showing you what my eyes are looking at as we move along. That level's broken. And now you can see the wicks up into it as price kind of tries to reclaim it. Right, and what we're seeing is today is another little attempt at reclaiming it, also with a nice volume spike. So if that does happen, to me, I would say this is maybe the first candidate of kind of that framework I looked at today. And how I'd be setting that up, I'd be looking at it to move to this previous support. where we had our breakdown. Right, breakdown, price moves down, expecting that level to now be resistance, and you can also see it does. Right, the markets are beautiful in that way. Give us a little wick touch right there. So I'd be expecting that selling pressure at this daily swing higher, the top of that wick. It's also a little support. Resistance flip. Right, this level that was support, now turning into resistance at that wick. Right, so I hope that paints a rather clear picture of why I'd be targeting this area. Now, what triggers my wanting to be in this was this needs daily close above. Really, I'd want a daily close above. So we had a fake out here, right? So maybe my drawing of this level is a little bit dicey. I'd probably want a daily close back where dailies were closing when this was support, right? So you can even see that also kind of takes away this fake out, right? So if we do have a daily close above this daily close fake out, or anything really kind of, I'm going to call that 33.9 thousand sats, right? 33.9 thousand sats. If we have a daily close above there, or really call it 40,000 sats, to me, that triggers me want to be, that would trigger me to want to be long, and I'd be aiming for this support resistance flip, also the breakdown level. Where would I take profit? Serban, hopefully that makes a ton of sense. Right. Even if you're already long, I think that's fine. It does look like it's going to break out. Right. So nothing wrong with anticipating that's going to break out. I think that looks really, really good. Right. There's also a little bit of a double bottom. I like that. I like that setup a lot. That's probably what I'm going to post as a nice little trade idea, and I'm just going to use this video as kind of my chart. I think this will probably give a better picture than my chart will. Hopefully that makes sense. Serban, obviously not advice, but that is just objectively how I'd be looking at it. Lindo, thoughts on MFT? Hopefully I answered him. Crowbar, hopefully that makes sense. POE doing the exact same thing. Where is POE? POE may be doing the exact same thing. I would say maybe it's a step past. I would actually call this still a September low cycle low play. Right, so here's September 12th, and we're right at it. Right. I like POE a lot, but I would kind of call this kind of or look at this like all the setups we've played recently, and be aiming for this first swing high is kind of an obvious resistance level for me, right? But really, now that the trend's on our side, now that we're seeing some alts that can really start running, right? I think it's fine to maybe get a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more greedy with looking at second targets, right? I think that would make a ton of sense as well. Looking at this support, turn to resistance right here, right? And then just extending that over. That's where I'm expecting the selling pressure if price does move up. Same thing here. Right, so I like POE a lot. Obviously for both these, you guys know the rules of these cycle low plays. If this was the most suppressed prices had been back for almost every single alt that bottomed out September 12th, the really clear sign that this setup would be wrong, probably we'd see it in Bitcoin and other setups first. But if we do start to close below kind of 112, 113, I'd probably want to jump out of that, right? So risk is managed in that sense, a little 5% drop or hard stop kind of below these most recent lows. I think that play makes a lot of sense. 3 and 4 or an 8R. Right? And I think that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for bringing up POE. So POE and LSK, I think, are two I'm going to break down. Good questions, guys. Hey, what's up, Jordan? Oh, Santiago, nice. That makes sense. Mark, I briefly looked at LRC. I didn't cover it just because I don't have any new thoughts on it. It's almost identical. I would say it's kind of a morph. I don't think this is going to fit any framework. It's just such a unique chart, but I do still really like it. It has a lot of the same characteristics as the cycle low plays, right? Bottomed out September 12th, and that's the support we're going off of. The only difference is it did also drop. I guess this is kind of another clear example of a coin like ELF or Icon, right? Not only did it drop below its September 12th low, right? That was kind of the most ideal buy. Obviously, I wasn't tracking it then, but November, December, that range that it formed, almost every single coin is breaking out from that November, December range, right? Previous support back here, September 12th. And then as it comes back down to retest, right? That's the ELF play, that's the Icon play, that's the POE play, or not the POE, that's the LSK play we just looked at. Right? I think you guys can see kind of there's 1, 2, 3, or 4 similar characteristics of things are dropping below, September or August or whatever it is, cycle low support. And then this new range that's forming in November, December, I think is really kind of the more ideal, or from a price perspective, right? Who knows if this coin actually starts running or another coin, but if I'm just filtering between a list of 100 alts, generally I want to be more allocated to the ones that I think are priced better, right? Momentum does play a role, but understanding the value of these things, and I'm talking about from a technical perspective, means when the market does turn, same as the cycle low plays, I would just expect these to get hurt less. The only kind of asterisk I want to throw out there is I'm not going to find too many alts that are finding new or all-time lows. I'm probably not going to play them. As a general rule, I don't like to play alts at all-time lows. I just don't enjoy it. But that's thoughts on LRC. All right, guys, that is a good stream. Hopefully that at least lays the groundwork for a lot of the alt looks we're going to be looking at this weekend, tomorrow, next week, most of March. Wanted to bring up a few old ideas we haven't covered in a while. Also look at a few new ideas, both with POE and with LSK. I think they both look great. Thanks for bringing those up, guys. And then from Bitcoin and from a major perspective, right, I'm not like too interested in making moves here, but my eyes are on this high time frame level of 39.20. If we have closes above here, right, my conviction that we actually make it to 41.42 is a lot higher. And it's really the only time that I would open a new long is if we get above this 39.30, 39.20 area. If not, I'd probably want to wait for a dip back down. But if we dip back down, I'm going to be a lot more hesitant on buying that. I'm also probably going to be pretty hesitant, and my risk tolerance, I guess my risk appetite is going to go down a ton in terms of wanting to be in alts. If Bitcoin drops back down to 3,700, I think majors would get hurt. I think the prospects of a lot of Binance coins doing well would get hurt. Right, so, yeah. So, yeah, we certainly could, Alex. Who knows? Right now, I'm being patient and moving slow. Most of the action's been happening Friday, Sunday. Right? Maybe that happens again, maybe it doesn't. But that's a big picture view. Bitcoin, guys, the only 3 levels I'm focused on have been on the chart all week. Still long from 3,700, and those are the new alts I'm looking at. I'm going to post them in the Discord. That's all I have. Have a good Thursday. I will see you guys tomorrow. Stay well. And I'll see you then. Peace.